I'm back. Okay, hi. So, couple of things. I have new hairs. Let me know if you like it. I love it. So if you don't like it, don't say you don't like it. That's rude. Also, new background. Do we like it? Do we hate it? And then also, I have a spooky cup today. So it's August. It's officially fall. I don't care who says what. That's what we're going with. And there's one more thing. My shirt is so cute. It says, "What the fuckulent?" But before we get started, I just wanted to say like a quick trigger warning. There's a lot of like violence, sexual assault, of course. This guy was just a super douche, so we'll get right into it. So Larry William Eiler was born December 21st, 1952. He was born in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I lied. He was born in Crawfordsville, Indiana. So we have another Indiana serial killer, but this one is, I don't want to say it's the same as the first one, but it is similar. It's similar. I don't know. Anyway, Larry Eiler was the youngest of 4 children. His dad's name is George Eiler, and his mom's name is Shirley Kennedy. And then, of course, she got married, and it became Eiler. His father was an alcoholic and was said to physically and mentally abuse his wife and children. His parents divorced in the middle of 1955, and it was said that Larry and his 3 sisters were placed in the care of babysitters and also foster parents every once in a while. And then when the oldest sibling was 10 years old, Larry's mother would leave all 3 of the other kids in their care. I mean, I guess it was the 50s, so still not okay. And all right, moving on. Larry's mom worked 2 jobs as a waitress at a restaurant, and then on the weekends she was a bartender. Larry's mom went ahead and remarried in 1957. The marriage only lasted 1 year before they were divorced. She also got married again in 1960, and then they were divorced 4 years after that. She got married for a 4th time in 1972. We are moving right along. Larry's stepfathers were said to be super abusive, and he and his sister said that the abuse that they would experience would be certain forms of punishment. One of the punishments would be holding them under scalding hot water as a form of discipline. Larry also said that his father and his stepfathers would mentally and emotionally abuse him because he hadn't come out yet at that point, but his father and stepfathers knew that he was gay. Larry went to school in Lebanon, Indiana, and he was the brunt of many bullies and jokes against him for being poor and unpopular and kind of a nerd. His teachers said that he was super sweet, was a good kid. He was likable, he was fine, but he didn't have very many friends. His sister would actually be the one to step up for him. Her name was Teresa, and she would actually confront the bullies and make a scene and embarrass the bullies and stuff to kind of keep them off his back. And again, here we are with Larry's mom placing him in a boys' school for his unruly behavior. Larry said this experience was emotionally devastating, and he would frequently... Larry said that this experience was emotionally devastating, and he would often talk to his mom on the phone and sob, begging her to come get him from the home. And when he would undergo his psychiatric evaluations, he was said to have average intelligence but had a lot of insecurities and a severe abandonment issue. From the psychiatric evaluation, the psychiatrist recommended that Eiler be placed into a Catholic boys' school located in Fort Wayne, Indiana. He stayed there for about 6 months until he came home back to his mother. Early on in Larry's life, he knew that he was gay. He was open about his sexuality with his family. Throughout high school, he would occasionally date girls, but none of the relationships became physical. He would tell his friends and peers that he grew up super religious, and so he wanted to be straight. He wanted to have girlfriends. He wanted to get married, have a wife, kids, all that good stuff, but he was just gay and he couldn't help it, and he struggled with his self-image and the acceptance of his sexuality. His senior year of high school, he actually dropped out and got his GED. A few months later, he went to work at a hospital as a security guard. He worked there for about 6 months before he was fired, and he went and found another job at a shoe store. While working at this shoe store, he became familiar with Indianapolis's gay community. He would go to the gay bars and all of that good stuff, and he would have like a couple of like little flings, but nothing really serious at that moment. Several of his casual partners had said that he would mumble things such as bitch and whore, which led them to believe that he was fantasizing that they were female. He also wouldn't look them in the eye. He would keep looking away and, whatever. By the mid-1970s, Larry was pretty well known in the gay community. Most of his acquaintances said that he was a really good-looking, laid-back guy, but the people who got more intimate with him would say that he was very violent and very sadistic in bed. He would severely beat them while having relations with these people, and then he would actually cut them lightly with sharp knives, primarily on their chest and their torso. From 1974 to 1978, Larry would enroll and drop out of college 4 times before he finally just kind of gave up on the idea. And at the age of 26, he moves to Terre Haute, Indiana with his old science library professor, Dr. Robert David Little. The two men were never intimate. They both stated that this was a strictly platonic relationship, and Larry would say that he looked at Dr. Little as a father figure. This would be the beginning of his murder spree. It's estimated that Larry had murdered 21 young men in a span of 2 years. Oh boy, was busy. Larry did testify and say that he was accomplice by Dr. Little in 4 of those murders. There were so many different accounts of all of these crimes. There's just like not enough time in the day to even go through all of them, so I will just kind of quickly go through their names. Most of the time they would be captured, sexually assaulted, and then dumped on the side of the road for most of them, and that is where he earned the name the Interstate Killer, because he would always dump his victims on the side of a highway. On October 23rd, 1982, Stephen Crockett, who is age 19, was murdered. On October 30th, 1982, Edgar Underkoffler, I'm so sorry. He was 26 years old when he was murdered. November of 1982, John Johnson was murdered at the age of 25. November 20th, 1982, William Lewis, age 19, was killed. December 19th, 1982, Stephen Agin, at the age of 23, was murdered. December 22nd, 1982, John Roach was murdered at the age of 21. December 30th, 1982, David Block, at the age of 22, was murdered. January 24th, 1983, Irvin Gibson was murdered at the age of 16. March 2nd, 1983, John Bartlett, at the age of 19, was killed. March 8th, 1983, Michael Bauer, at the age of 22, was captured by Larry and murdered. March 20th, 1983, Richard Wayne, at the age of 17, was murdered. March 22nd, 1983, Jay Reynolds, at the age of 29, was murdered. April 8th, 1983, Gustavo Herrera was murdered at the age of 28. May 4th, 1983, Jimmy Roberts at the age of 18 was murdered. May 7th, 1983, Daniel McNeve was murdered at the age of 21. At 25 years old, Richard Bruce was murdered on May 18th, 1983. May 29th, 1983, John Brandenburg Jr. was murdered at the age of 19. August 31st, 1983, Ralph Calise was murdered at the age of 28. September 27th, 1983, Eric Hansen died at the age of 18. August 19th, 1984, Daniel Bridges died at the age of 16. Larry did not confess to Jay Reynolds and Eric Hansen's murder, but he is a very strong suspect in these cases. 4 of Larry's victims have never been identified, and one of their body is still not found to this day. On July 2nd, 1983, a Hispanic male aged 20 to 25 was found in Ford County, Illinois. On October 18th, 1983, in Newton County, Indiana, an African-American 15-year-old boy was found. On December 7th, 1983, Hendricks County, Indiana, another African-American man aged 25 to 39 was found. And April 1984, in Cook County, Illinois, there was a white male found, and he was aged 16 to 19. In September of 1983, Larry is seen by a police officer on the side of the road walking with a young man who was tied and bound into a wooded area on the side of I-65. The police officer noted that the person with Larry looked terrified and like he was not willing to be a participant in those festivities, if you know what I mean. So the cop goes and pulls him over, and when he talks to Larry, he just says like, hey, this is like a thing, like we know each other. But when he pulled the victim aside, he talked to him, and the victim was like, listen, he asked me like, hey, what's up? You know, we just made casual conversation, and then he made unwanted sexual advances towards me, and then asked if he could tie me up, and like, here we are. And I'm like straight up not having a good time. So obviously the cop is like, what the fuck? And so he arrests Larry and searches his vehicle, and when he does search his vehicle, he finds surgical tape, a nylon cord, and a hunting knife with blood on it. And that blood matched Calise's, the previous victim. There was blood, DNA, it all added up. It's not looking good for you, Larry Bear. Larry's tire tracks were actually a match to the ones found at the scene of Calise's, and his boot print was the same, and it was the same size shoe. So then, in October of 1983, Larry moves into his secret lover's house, and his name is John, bear with me y'all, Dobrovolsky. I did my best, I'm sorry. So anyway, what's so crazy about this is John was married and had kids that lived in the same house. Larry lived with his boo thing's wife and kids. Just Brady bunching it up around there. Hey, whatever. And it, like, what's even worse about all of this is like his wife knew about it and she was fine with it. Bitch. I gotta take a drink. I can't. Okay, so listen, when 2 more bodies were found in December of 1983, they finally start like linking things together. They found like a ton of circumstantial evidence linking Larry to about 18 murders at this time. She's getting real. Okay, so in November of 1982, Larry meets up with this guy named Craig, and so they, you know, hook up and they do their little thing, but what Craig didn't know is that Larry drugged his drink. And so after he got done sexually assaulting him, he beat him up pretty bad, right? So Craig escapes and he goes to the hospital and he's like, I just want to get fixed back up. But when the police come to investigate and they come to question him and like see what's going on, Craig already booked it. He escaped the hospital, so they couldn't question him. Why these guys get away with this shit, I will never know. So anyway, over a year later, the police hook back up with Craig and they finally get Craig to identify Larry in a lineup. But then later that month in December, the cops start to follow Larry around everywhere he goes. But of course, Larry catches on to this, and so then he files a lawsuit against Indiana Department of Corrections for $500,000. I mean, obviously he was denied, but he was also arrested for Khalees's murder at that same time. Sucks to suck, I guess. So then 3 months later, in February of 1984, he was bonded out. He was supposed to be waiting on his trials, but the judge threw all of them out because the police obtained evidence illegally. I don't know, guys. Later that year, in August of 1984, a janitor at Larry's apartment complex was doing his janitorial duties, but he decided to bring his dog to work that day. So why is that important? What's up with the dog? Well, nothing bad happens, but the dog, while his dad is doing the janitorial duties, aggressively yanks him towards the dumpster to these trash bags, and there's 8 of them in there, and in all 8 of them, they find the remains of a whole human. So how is that linked to Larry, you ask? Well, because it had all of his other stuff in there. It had his trash in there with it. So, I mean, of course, like, hello, they linked him to it. Okay, so you know how I said that doctor was, like, in on all the murders and stuff? Well, some of the murders and stuff. Well, they search his home. They find 221 items of evidence. This was like clothing, jewelry, pictures, and medications of some of the victims. And so then when they were searching one of the guys, there was a key found underneath him. And that key had a copy that was at Dr. Little's house. Larry and Dr. Little both had the key to the same place because Larry was there and he was there and they were there together. And so therefore, the key linked both of them to that crime. Larry goes on, like, for real trial this time on July 1st, 1986. And, like, at this point, Larry's pretty broke, you know what I'm saying? So he has 2 public defenders defending him, and they told him, like, hey, do not testify. Do not get up on that stand, right? Okay, well, Larry went up on the stand himself and made a fool out of him fucking self. And when the prosecutors had asked Larry, hey, what was in those trash bags? And he was like, I don't know. I was just getting some shit out of my apartment. Okay. The jury only deliberated for 3 hours before finding him guilty of aggravated kidnapping, unlawful restraint, and murder of Daniel Bridges, in addition to the concealment of his body. It was said that Larry really didn't show much emotion when the verdict was read, but he was seen, like, squeezing his public defender's legs on each side of him, like, scared shitless. Good. So anyhow, he got the death penalty, but then he was like, hey, if I let you know some more stuff about Dr. Little, can I get a reduced sentence? And they were like, nah, no thanks. So Dr. Little is still a free man to this day. And I couldn't find whether or not he was, like, still alive or not. So if you guys can find it, let me know. Larry was sent to the Pontiac Correctional Facility after that and ended up dying on March 6, 1994 due to AIDS complications. So he never even really received the death penalty. Annoying. Okay, so what can we learn from this? Well, first of all, let's not be mean to our kids that are gay. That may be a fantastic start. And also, I should probably find a case that doesn't involve gay men murdering young guys in Indiana. So, I'm very sorry. I was already, like, so invested in this case. I was like, I just needed to know more. So next week, I promise will not be a gay man from Indiana. If you have any recommendations on who I should talk about next, let me know. Until then, stay spooky. It's officially fall. Whether or not it is 89 degrees outside, I do not care. After July 31st to December 1st, it is Halloween. It is Halloween, and that is it. And there are no arguments. This discussion is over. Okay? Okay, like I said, stay spooky, baby darlings, and I will see you next week. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Follow me on Instagram and follow my page on Facebook and all that stuff. And that's about it. Toodaloo.